Your life is an open book, but now it literally actually is. Because here it is, and it's out this week. Why did you decide to write Open?
Like a lot of the things that I do, it's been quite an organic process, which sounds really pretentious, but I've really realized that that's the way I do things. Things inspire me and ignite my imagination all of the time. And I was getting a bit clogged up because I felt like, even though I was super inspired, I felt a little bit sad and a bit upset about the fact that I felt like younger women especially weren't being given the opportunity to talk about some of the things that were seriously affecting them. And that happened here at WOW. So the organic process started at Day of the Girl in October, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And they do speed mentoring in the Millennium Wheel. And it's incredible. I was in this pod with Zandra Rhodes and Dawn O'Porter.
This is, just to say, not the origin story for the book that I was expecting.
And I came out and I was buzzing because, like, speaking to the young women, I was just like, yeah! And, like, we were just exchanging, and it was fun. And I said to Jude straight away, I said, right, I want to do something at WOW next year, and I want to go to schools, and I want to research, and I want to speak to young girls. So Jude, who is a pioneer, as we all know, said, okay, she commissioned my production company, Boom Shakalaka, which had never made a video at that point, to go and to visit schools around the country and direct and produce and edit a video where I just enabled young women to tell me the things that are affecting them day to day. And I devised a really simple workshop where people could bring up different subject matters anonymously so that they didn't feel scrutinized. And it was just it was more amazing than I thought it was going to be. And I was left, again, like fizzing after a week of going to Durham, different parts of London, Birmingham, and just feeling like these girls were so articulate, so beautiful, so cool, so dynamic, but didn't actually realize it. And it hurt, and I thought to myself, what can I do? And it just grew and grew and grew, and I had an office above the pub where I invited loads of women, including Jo Swinson, who was an MP for the Lib Dems at the time, to this office above a pub to come up with ideas, and we were talking about campaigns and buses and pop music, and in the end, it ended up me being the spearhead of Open, and that's what it's kind of galvanized and become. I was really intrigued by this kind of zine DIY nature that's coming back very much, and there's some incredible zines out there, and I'm really excited about them. But and I loved the aesthetic, and I loved the playfulness and the nuance, and I wanted it. I like the fact that it doesn't have to be about academia. Like, if you get a book, you don't have to always read it from cover to cover. I want you to be able to go in and out, and for it to be digestible, and for it to be your friend, because I think that makes it personal and it makes it yours. I do like challenging myself. I'm kind of, I haven't had the easiest life, in the sense, lots of that's in the book, but I'm no kind of victim, and I don't feel sorry for myself. I always push through and use my energy to try and either have a great time or to do something good or interesting. So I definitely have felt intimidated, like when I was a little bit younger, in certain spheres, because sometimes you come across people, even within institutions or corporate worlds, that you think you can trust or that will get you and that tell you that you are great, and then suddenly will just slam a door in your face because you're being too many things, or you can't be categorized, or you're not old enough, young enough, white enough, black enough, all these things, alternative, mainstream, all of these things that you're supposed to suddenly be the more successful you get. And I spent probably a lot of my 20s thinking about that, thinking, if I get a bit skinnier and I straighten my hair, I will be invited to the award ceremony. And now I look back at that and I think, it's made me more of an activist, because I think it's really important that we are ourselves, and if that means that a certain channel or radio station or newspaper or magazine doesn't like what I do, I don't care. It's kind of a year and a half, 2 years later, and we produce theatre, we've made film, we do podcasts, we're getting our first BBC commissions. I feel like a lot of young women and women of all ages, like in terms of platforms like the pool, in terms of music, in terms of wow, I think we are in a great time to be able to just be ourselves, and because I think this cookie cutter thing, it's not necessarily to do with the person that's doing it, it's because of the business. Like, there's a lot of money to be made if you conform to a certain model of advertising or what like the man like says that you should be, and but it's changing, and that is so exciting to be part of. I need to like do my best to keep it like upbeat, because I believe that lots of us have hope as well. But in terms of some of the scarier stuff, I think that we're looking for a lot of answers online, and it's not necessarily the best place to always go, because there's no curation unless you know exactly like your spaces. So again, something like the pool or an amazing like young feminist campaign that you have like really engaged with, then you could come across quite a lot of damaging imagery and sort of negative stuff, and that can really affect your mental health. So for example, if you're thinking about sex, like people are trying to find it in like their sex education in porn, and that's really scary because a lot of porn is pretty terrible and not very nice when it comes to the way that women are treated. And even though sex is wonderful and it's something that should be enjoyed and it should be about love and that we should have in our lives if you want to, I think that it's being sort of commodified. So that's one of the things that I was really wanting to talk about. Another thing that was a sort of unspoken thing in classrooms until I went in and did this workshop, particularly with these Year 9 girls, is self-harm. And I realized to my horror and dismay, because it wasn't necessarily in my world when I was a teenager, that self-harm was almost trendy. So these things are really scary, they're really intense, and they're big subject matters, but I made sure that I spoke to organizations, experts, professors. Body image is huge, perfectionism is huge, selfie culture is huge, and we know all these things already. It's just about sort of questioning them in our own way and working out like our responses to them and whether it's damaging our mental health. I felt like popular culture in the 90s was quite like hedonistic, and so the cool stuff was like going out, partying, finding your way, getting drunk. Like, I'm not saying any of this is good, I'm not advocating it, it's bad, but we knew that those were like potential addictions that you could get. Whereas now, you can be addicted to social media, but nobody's really talking about that. And it can be as damaging in a way. And maybe it's not going to necessarily affect your physical health directly, but it can definitely affect your mental health. And I feel like no one's really talking about that, because definitely when I was a teenager, there was like, say no to drugs, always use a condom, all of these things that are really important and have been instilled in me that actually worked. You know, some things didn't, but those did. And actually, like, I feel like no one's saying, just be careful of your phone. Like, you have the power of the plug. You can turn your phone off. Like, that is so powerful and so brilliant that if you want to have a day off, you actually can. Like, you don't have to always be on it. Or if you are like on it, then question maybe why and how it's making you feel. When I was researching self-harm specifically, like all I could find was damaging stuff, and I was searching in a panic, trying to find, if I was 14 and I knew my best friend was self-harming, and like, what would I do? I might go and have a look online, and the things that I was finding was so scary, and I just thought, like, we need to start shining a light on some of the organizations that are doing really progressive work. We need to make sure that they work with tech and the advancement, and we need to galvanize like some protection, and we need to have a really honest conversation with ourselves as to what's going on with our relationship with the internet and our access to information, and start curating it somehow. I am not a tech innovator of any sort, but there are people out there, and I think that we need to start safeguarding certain parts of the internet. I do.